It all started in an Indiana cornfield. Behind Indiana Beach from the beginning was the Spackman family. Today, Tom Spackman, son of founder Earl Spackman, runs the facility with his daughter Ruth Davis and son Tom Spackman Jr. managing the daily operations. With Spackman's daughters Kathy Junjin and Joy Bailey involved in the facility's day-to-day operations, the Spackman family vision has driven Indiana Beach to grow from a swimming area in a cornfield to the largest amusement resort and vacation playground in Indiana, an escape destination enjoyed by nearly 750,000 visitors annually. Over 30 rides and attractions, games, fine dining, dancing, a giant water park, 5 roller coasters, and so much more. It all had to begin somewhere.
Well, first we moved to Indianapolis, and my father had gotten the right to sell the whole state of Indiana Ideal Furnaces from the Ideal Furnace Company. We were living there when he read in the Indianapolis Star about the dam being built.
That dam would create Lake Schaefer near Monticello, Indiana. Earl Spackman took his family to the new lake in hopes of purchasing a lot to build a vacation cottage. After touring the area, Spackman purchased a lot and built his cottage. While the cottage and location were beautiful, the sharp banks of the artificial lake made finding a place to swim in the waters impossible. The dam and the creation of Lake Schaefer were big projects for the Indiana area. Travelers would often pass by to see the new lake and view the ongoing venture. But something was missing.
And there wasn't very many places where you could walk out on the water. So many people came to our gate and said, "Where can we go swimming?" Over and over again.
With an announcement that Lake Schaefer would be lowered to provide water for Lake Freeman, and so many people searching for a place to swim, Spackman was struck with an idea. People wanted a place to swim, and he was going to give it to them. Utilizing a loan from the Ideal Furnace Company, which he represented, Earl Spackman began hauling sand and gravel out towards an area near the lake where the land was low and a beach could be created for people to wade out safely into deeper water.
There's a mud like you have in a wet cornfield. Well, to have a beach, you don't want mud. You want sand. He hired a team of horses to take the sand and gravel out and spread it around the beach.
Using the horse and wagon, 2x4s, and a shovel, Spackman and others literally created a beach along the shores of Lake Schaefer. In addition, the crew built a bathhouse for guests to change in and a small refreshment stand. In 1926, Ideal Beach opened to the public with a 12-year-old Tom Spackman working hard behind the counter of the refreshment stand.
I enjoyed doing that. We had a popcorn machine and we sold cold drinks. Our best seller was Coca-Cola.
Just as Spackman had hoped, the desire for some place to swim in Lake Schaefer brought people to Ideal Beach. With little or no advertising, guests turned out to enjoy the new beach.
The crowd turned out to be pretty fair. My father was new in that business. It's a little bit different than selling furnaces.
To attract crowds in its early years, Ideal Beach, including Earl and Tom Spackman, posted window cards in local businesses, exchanging a day pass for letting them post the card. The Beach House Hotel was added, and camping was also informally allowed in the area, giving guests the opportunity for an overnight visit. In 1927, Ideal Beach added some excitement to its lineup with the arrival of a pair of toboggan slides. Guests would drop nearly 30 feet downhill aboard these popular thrill attractions and then skip across the Lake Schaefer water. With its first successful attractions in place, Ideal Beach still needed to grow. Spackman knew the more attractions he had in place, the more guests would flock to the beach and stay for a while. With no master plan in place, it seemed to grow on its own. However, after noticing a small, successful dance floor on the other side of the lake, Spackman made one addition in 1930 that stood out from the rest and began a tradition that remains through the present day.
We built a dance floor, and it was a wooden maple floor, very nice, roofed, nice structure. And it caught fire the night before we were to open.
With no real fire protection available at the time, the original dance floor burned to the ground. Not to be deterred, Spackman rebuilt the dance floor, this time out of cement.
There was a cement company that made a very hard surface you could put on top of your original pour, and it made a very good, slick dance floor.
The new cement dance floor was the centerpiece of the legendary Ideal Beach Ballroom. Still in use today, the floor hosted evening dances for guests and residents of the surrounding area. It continues to play host to many special events at the beach, including its weekend teen dance club. But in the 30s, the Ideal Beach Ballroom was a home to the growing big band era. Expanding twice, the ballroom quickly became one of the major attractions.
Well, that was the day of big bands were on the air. We tried to have something about every 2 weeks. It was just a one-night attraction. The band just came and set up and played one night.
One of the major showcases for big bands of the era was WGN Radio in Chicago. Benny Goodman, Tommy Dorsey, Glenn Miller, and Louis Armstrong all made riveting appearances on WGN and then promoted their upcoming one-night-only performances at the Ideal Beach Ballroom.
There were a lot of pretty girls to come to the dances. I learned to dance quite fast, and it was enjoyable.
With Ideal Beach receiving attention for its musical performances, the tradition of hosting concerts with some of the day's hottest artists continued. Throughout the years, the ballroom has played host to shows by Sonny and Cher, Fabian, the Beach Boys, Simon and Garfunkel, and Peter, Paul and Mary, and even into the rock and roll era of Alice Cooper, REO Speedwagon, Jefferson Starship, and Chicago. Ideal Beach was prospering greatly when something unexpected happened.
It seemed to come almost overnight. Suddenly, people were out of jobs.
The onset of the Great Depression hit right into the core of Ideal Beach. As much of the country sought employment and financial stability, Ideal Beach and Earl Spackman made efforts to find their own stability. The bank, which controlled the property Ideal Beach was on, folded and wanted the money for the land. Earl Spackman went back to his reliable contacts at the Ideal Furnace Company. Convincing the president of Ideal Furnace to purchase the entire subdivision community which Ideal Beach called home, Earl Spackman assured him that he could resell the lots and pay back his investment.
The man gambled that it was a good bet. He accepted it. And he did get paid back.
Through his shrewd business sense and determination to keep Ideal Beach open, Earl Spackman was not only able to purchase the beach property and keep it running, he was able to keep people coming to enjoy it during the Depression. His ingenuity to keep guests arriving relied on making some adjustments to his daily operation.
We used to charge 50 cents to get into the dance. We got it down as low as 35 cents and sometimes 25 on special nights. And they turned out. They accepted that. And then that way we tried to reach more people to make up what we came up short on the cash side.
Reaching more people meant more advertising. Even at the young age of 15, Tom Spackman was interested in helping his father get the word out for the Ideal Beach and its dances.
I was interested in signs Signs, we needed more signs telling people how to get to Ideal Beach.
Since he was too young to drive, young Tom utilized a driver, and the two drove to all the neighboring towns. Once there, they'd distribute window cards and signs advertising the Ideal Beach attractions. But advertising was only Tom Spackman's first step in the operations of Ideal Beach. As the business continued to grow, Tom learned every aspect of it. In 1932, he attended college at Indiana University and earned a degree in business, returning to work full-time with his father at Ideal Beach. Earl Spackman got out of the furnace business in the middle of the Depression, and now Ideal Beach was the family's only source of income.
It didn't cost much to come to the beach to come swimming. It was probably the cheapest recreation available. So we continued to do enough to keep our head above water.
Doing enough meant continuing to add to the beach. One of the next major expansions came in continued accommodations for guests who drove out to Lake Schaefer and Ideal Beach. Although the Beach House Hotel and informal camping already provided some overnight opportunities, in the late 1930s, Ideal Beach added more options and built its first cottages.
My father decided to build a few cottages. They went real good. We eventually got as many as 20 cottages.
Cottages and overnight accommodations became a staple of the beach's success over the years, as did attractions and rides. The family leased part of their land for the installation of the resort's first iron ride, a Ferris wheel. With limited success, the original Ferris wheel left after a season.
There was an interval there when we didn't have anything. But another man came along, and he had two rides. It was a Ferris wheel and a merry-go-round. Merry-go-round was ideal for the children. It was a good draw, too, because kids find out about things like that, and they tell their parents. And really, they rule.
But Tom Spackman's experiences with the early attractions, advertising the beach, and even selling Coca-Cola in the small refreshment stand were only the beginnings of his involvement. Earl not only taught his son a solid work ethic, but by watching his father make decisions and grow the business, Tom learned how to run a successful operation. But now, it was time for Tom to make all the decisions himself.
When my father died in '46, I wanted to try some new things, yes.
Tom's new things included the addition of the beach's first permanent rides in 1947, just 1 year later. The arrival of the Ferris wheel, merry-go-round, and roloplane, also called the Bullet, delighted guests with every ride. Unique to Ideal Beach's lakeside location, guests could also be thrilled aboard the Wahoo Junior, a Chris Craft speedboat which rocketed guests across the waters of Lake Schaefer. But these were only the first steps in bringing more than corn to Indiana. As Ideal Beach began to grow, the Spackman family grew. Tom Spackman wed Helen Quackenbush in 1937. Together they had 5 children: Tom Jr., Ruth, Kathy, Joy, and Jim. Throughout their lives, all members of the Spackman family have found themselves involved in the operations of the beach. Today, Ruth Spackman, now Davis, and Tom Spackman Jr. manage the daily operations and business of the facility.
Well, it depends on the hat I'm wearing for the day, but generally I call it operations manager.
I kind of take care of looking after rides and doing a lot of planning and just general overall management of the park and the campgrounds. Well, my sister Kathy is the manager of the Jellystone Campground. And then my sister Joy takes care of the gift store. And then we have a lot of grandchildren that are also involved in the park. So there's quite a few family members and cousins and nephews and also involved in the park.
But before they could run the park, the Spackman children got to enjoy the fun of Ideal Beach, a place Spackman had dubbed the Riviera of the Midwest.
I remember the merry-go-round, catching the brass ring. We always did rides after dinner and maybe play miniature golf, which I was a lot better as a child than I am now.
We'd spend most of the day either swimming or doing boating. We got a little bit older, and our first job was to go out and pick up pop bottles. This is when you sold Cokes for like 5 cents a bottle, the little 8-ounce bottles.
As Tom Spackman's family grew up in an amusement park, he continued his father's tradition of family involvement in the business. The children were brought into the business with small jobs and chores, which slowly entrusted them with more responsibility. His wife, Helen, handled the office bookkeeping and organizational work.
My mom was pretty much the administrator of the business, and you learned a lot of detail from her.
They were always here. Father was the walker and the note taker. Mother sat calmly at her desk and did the books and would look up and just say a word or two, and that mission would get done.
The Spackman children were learning their work ethic from their parents and discovering what it takes to make a successful attraction facility such as Ideal Beach. The family's roots were in the beach, and their future was there as well. Tom Spackman Sr. knew this and kept the dream alive every day at Ideal Beach.
And Dad was the visionary, but he was also an on-hands type of manager. He was out in the park every day, making sure that lights were on, ride operators were paying attention to what was going on, and the people were being taken care of properly.
For Tom Spackman's vision to continue and grow, he knew more people had to come to Ideal Beach. Knowing the immediate area did not have enough population to support the growth, Spackman had to figure out a way to attract more people, with many people not knowing where Ideal Beach was.
We were getting people from other states. Michigan was good, and Illinois was excellent. I could see that we had to reach them and tell them what we had.
Spackman wanted people to know that they could come to Indiana to have fun and enjoy a vacation. He wanted them to know everything that the beach paradise had to offer. And he wanted them to know where in the world Ideal Beach really was. To accomplish this, in 1952, Tom Spackman elected to change the name from Ideal Beach to Indiana Beach.
Ideal Beach, well, where's it? But he says he's been to Indiana Beach. Oh, hey, you went out of the state. You have fun? And it would sit so much better.
Well, Dad was one of the first people in the state to really get out and promote tourism statewide.
The name change made certain that guests were able to tell their friends and family exactly where they'd been. But that was only part of Tom Spackman's mission. People had to know about Indiana Beach. They had to hear about it and all it had to offer, and pay attention to what they heard. Expanding and upgrading the Beach House Inn in 1951 and 52, he wanted people to come for a day, for a weekend, for a week. But that required getting their interest in any way he could. Tom used eye-catching marketing promotions or stunts to attract attention and drive the success of Ideal Beach and the early Indiana Beach, including high-wire acts, escape artists such as the Great Pasha, and even a man being shot out of a cannon. But these special performances were just a few of Spackman's creative marketing stunts.
We used to have a state road, but that road had a lot of traffic going towards Chicago from Indianapolis. And I got a pretty girl in a bathing suit to stand on a platform in front of our sign. They were paying attention to our sign.
Well, one of the best ones that I can remember is the man living underwater. We actually had a tank out at the end of the pier, submerged in the lake with a glass top on it. I believe it was Mr. Abbott was living underwater, protesting the high rate of taxation at that time.
He was an ex-GI. Well, he was pretty hard up, and we hired him to go underwater because he couldn't keep his head above water.
During the flying saucer period, we had a promotion welcoming extraterrestrials to the beach.
With attention from the name change and his outlandish stunts, Tom Spackman Sr. continued to develop his family's paradise amongst the Indiana cornfields. The Riviera of the Midwest still suited Indiana Beach perfectly. Spackman strived to continue to create and maintain this ideal paradise for his guests.
He's done some other unique things that I kind of learned through the years. Listen to people, go places, see things, bring back ideas. The boardwalk was an idea he brought back.
The Indiana Beach Boardwalk Funway has become the centerpiece of the vacation destination. Running the length of the park, all of the beach's attractions, rides, games, shops, and the beach itself are located directly off of it.
Well, I went to Atlantic City, and I saw the boardwalk. I came back, and I had to have a boardwalk.
Spackman continued this tradition of bringing back the best of his travels with him. If he found something in another state, another park, or anywhere in the world for that matter that he enjoyed, he found a way to bring it home to Indiana Beach.
The shops came along, you know, they started out just like in Atlantic City. You come in and buy your hat and your sunglasses. At one point in time, someone in the business told us that we were just asleep. We were missing the boat. My dad really listened to him and said, okay, we're going to spend some money and build some stores.
Anytime we'd take a family trip, we would always visit any sort of attraction or park just to see what they were doing in those areas. And that's probably the one thing I always remember is when we put the Sky Ride in. We took a trip to Colorado. We must have visited every ski lift that they had in Colorado at that time before that ride went in.
I looked at several of them. We have an unusual structure in ours. Many of them are built with a pole, but it's not very attractive. And if you look at ours, the structure itself is rather pleasing.
The Sky Ride wasn't the only way guests could get an elevated view of Indiana Beach. One of the few amusement facilities where guests can enjoy dining at a white tablecloth restaurant, the Sky Room restaurant was added in the late 1960s. Seating 250 people, the glass walls of the restaurant allow guests to overlook Lake Schaefer and the Boardwalk Funway.
At one time, the ballroom and the Sky Room were one open-air building. So it was like balcony seating looking down on the entertainers playing in the ballroom.
And then the bands were moved up there. Dick Holloman played in the Sky Room one summer. Then it was just strictly a steakhouse for a summer. And then the existing hotel restaurant was moved up there and it became the Sky Room.
We had a dining room in the hotel, but it was small. There wasn't any scenery to be seen below, looking out the windows there. And I thought it would be nice if they were up in the air and could see the beach and the motorboats going by.
The Sky Room was designed to be a family restaurant, but we also know there are some gourmets. There are some moms and dads that maybe they would like to have crab legs one night while a child is eating spaghetti. So the menu does range from Chateaubriand to fried chicken. One of the things that we look at when we price in the Sky Room is we try to remember where we are. We are in Indiana. We are not in Chicago. We do have families that are coming, and maybe there are 6 people in that family unit. So our menu is priced, so it really is very reasonable.
The Sky Ride and the Sky Room were, like most attractions at Indiana Beach, designed by Tom Spackman himself and pushed by his imagination. Spackman wanted the park to remain true to its roots, remain eye-pleasing, and offer the variety of attractions that his vision intended.
Well, he was very much a visionary, always dreaming about how to expand things. And some of the ideas, you know, at the time we thought were crazy, for example, like where we are at the campground. When the campground went in, he had a vision that we didn't see, and it has turned out to be a far greater benefit than any of us ever imagined.
We had rides, we had a place to swim, and we wanted people. So We built a campground, and it has been done quite well. It's done its job. It's brought people to Indiana Beach.
Camping has just simply become popular. Whether you're tent camping or you own your own camper, it was such a success that we've had to add trams to bring the people over.
In 1959, the Aqua Theater was introduced with a water ski show featuring a boat jumping through fire. Spackman wanted the best ski show available, so as he had done before, he traveled. This time it was to Cypress Gardens in Florida to see what they were doing. Taking home movies of the performances, he was able to document and decide the exact type of eye-catching show he wanted for Indiana Beach.
The water is it. They come to the water for recreation. They come to the water for all the other enjoyment they can get from it. And while they're here, the rides might be considered a sideline.
Keeping that central idea in mind, Indiana Beach gained its first icon on the lake with the arrival of the Schaefer Queen in 1961. A beautiful paddle wheeler, the Schaefer Queen took guests on guided tours of the area surrounding Indiana Beach. The original Schaefer Queen was retired in 1972 and became a lakeside restaurant known as the Pronto Princess. The new Schaefer Queen was designed by master craftsman Bill Luce and began carrying passengers in 1973. Today, the Schaefer Queen remains the largest regularly scheduled paddle wheel boat in Indiana. Other rides and attractions were added over the years, including the Dodgem, Antique Autos, the Scrambler, and the popular Mystery Mansion Haunted House Dark Ride. In 1966, Spackman's imagination expanded the park even further over the waters of Lake Schaefer with the addition of the largest suspension bridge in the Midwest. Connecting the Boardwalk Funway to the new south parking lot, the footbridge was a path directly over the lake for guests to arrive at Indiana Beach and take in the spectacular view of the surrounding area along the way. In 1971, Indiana Beach forever altered its skyline when it received its first ever roller coaster, the Galaxy.
We had no coaster at all. And so someone approached my dad and suggested he go to the Oktoberfest in Germany where he could ride the new steel coasters. So we went to Oktoberfest. I'm not a coaster rider, but I got to ride the Galaxy 5 times, and I think he rode 20. So he was making sure that he wanted that ride.
The Galaxy was a prefabricated Italian roller coaster which continues to delight guests of all ages. However, Indiana Beach was about to receive two attractions which would forever be unique to guests for years to come. The first opened in 1978. Superstition Mountain was a ride designed by Tom Spackman Sr. and constructed under his strict supervision. It blended elements of a roller coaster, a mine car ride, and a haunted house-style dark ride, all within the confines of a man-made mountain.
The mountain ride was 3 years in construction. And that was a pet project of Dad. And Mom was getting concerned because it never was finished. The construction continued the third year, and finally Mom cut it off and said, that's as far as it's going to go. There's no peak on the mountain. We're going to leave it that way. That's how the mountain has existed till this day.
In 1980, on the eve of the final operating day of the summer season, the park's original funhouse caught fire and burned to the ground. Unsalvageable, the destruction of the funhouse enabled Tom's visions to bring something special to the park again in 1983 with Dr. Frankenstein's Haunted Castle. Once again designed by Tom and constructed under his supervision, the early designs of the castle were actually based on his drawings in the sands of Indiana Beach. Based on the classic funhouses, this traditional fun-in-the-dark haunted house had guests walking through the elaborate castle loaded with tricks and surprises, guaranteed to keep guests shrieking and screaming with excitement. Today, Dr. Frankenstein's Haunted Castle is ranked by dark ride and funhouse enthusiasts as one of the top 3 walk-through funhouse attractions in the world. After the success of the new attractions, Indiana Beach added a second steel coaster in 1984. Feeling as though the park was running out of space for expansion, Spackman devised a plan to install the new coaster on the rooftop of an existing restaurant. Between the lakeside location and the raised ride, the Tiger Coaster opened to guests who were thrilled by the new experience. Guests were discovering that Indiana held more for visitors than they had ever thought. Just how much more was about to be answered.
At the beach, Indiana Beach, we'll go sliding, gliding on all the water rides. There's more than corn in Indiana at the super sensational, exciting vacational Indiana Beach.
Tom Spackman knew strong advertising and promotion were key to Indiana Beach attracting more guests and attention. He knew people from all over the country had to be made aware of Indiana Beach and all it had to offer. He knew Indiana Beach needed an identity, something undeniably recognizable in the marketplace. So he contracted with amusement park marketing specialist William H. Robinson of Cincinnati in 1985 to do just that.
Indiana Beach is a classic amusement park. It is to the amusement park industry what the 57 Chevy is to the automotive industry. The idea was to come up with a theme that not only give it location, but also give it an identity of its own. Corn is one of the major products in the state of Indiana. If you go to Indiana Beach, you go through cornfields to get to Indiana Beach, and then you get to this beautiful amusement resort that's built on this beautiful lake that really is in the middle of cornfields. And that's where the More Than Corn in Indiana theme came from, and of course, where there's corn, there's crows. So the crow became the icon to basically sell the More Than Corn in Indiana theme.
With limited footage and budget available, I.B. Crow and the new slogan made their first ever appearance to the Indiana Beach marketplace in this short 15-second television spot teaser.
Open daily, Indiana's largest amusement park and vacation playground. Indiana Beach on beautiful Lake Shaver, Monticello, Indiana, proving once again there is more than corn in Indiana.
I didn't think it was so good at first, but I do now.
Tom was a little bit hesitant in the beginning about the crow. His wife, his daughter, his son-in-law were in favor of it, but Tom was a little bit hesitant. And the story goes that we first went on the air, all we had was a 15-second spot because we really didn't have any footage of the facility, and we had I.B. Crow, and of course, I.B. Crow went caw-caw, and there's More Than Corn in Indiana, and Tom went down to Indianapolis to pick up some parts or something that he needed for the park, and he went in and he says, I'm from Indiana Beach, and the fellow waiting on him says, caw, caw. And Tom came back and immediately called me back and says, I think we got a winner.
A far cry from the classic banner that the Riviera of the Midwest had given Indiana Beach, There's More Than Corn in Indiana succeeded in making the paradise readily identifiable to the public. The reach of the campaign, the popularity of the slogan, and the versatility of I.B. Crow grew exponentially over the years.
If you travel all over, that's how we are identified now. McDonald's has the Golden Arches. Indiana Beach has More Than Corn in Indiana. Just yesterday, we had a woman who came to the park with group sales with her group for the day. She says, I'm a teacher, and I have to tell you this story. She said, I was quizzing my students on what's the state flag, and then they went, what's the state bird? Cardinal. What's the state tree? The tulip. And what's the state song? More Than Corn. So I think that promotion has definitely, it's number one, yeah.
It's been interesting because as you travel around and talk to people, you'll hear the expression More Than Corn, and it's amazing how that little slogan has caught on, and you hear it worldwide. I've even heard it in France, and talking to different people that have either been here or visited parks, and it's probably one of the most successful slogans anybody has had.
The crow is a wonderful icon to use in our gift shops. It gives us something to put on, t-shirts. The best-selling shirt I have is one with I.B. Crow. That's his name, I.B. Crow, on the front and on the back. And it says, there's more than corn in Indiana. And you can do anything with I.B. Crow. He goes everywhere.
Any questions?
The arrival of I.B. Crow and the uncanny success of the new campaign brought people like never before to Indiana Beach. Now drawing heavily out of Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, and Michigan, as well as several other states, Indiana Beach was being discovered as the paradise in the middle of a cornfield. With more people came a need for more attractions. After 60 years, the beach itself was still the centerpiece to the park. But Spackman saw a need to add more water fun and excitement. In 1987, Indiana Beach added a water park. Given special constraints, all of the water slides and the long Action River had to be literally constructed over and in the waters of Lake Schaefer.
We thought it would fit us perfectly. We built a river, it must be close to 2,000 feet long, that moves at a pretty good rate. So the person floating in the tube has got new scenery going by all the time. It wasn't anything new, but there weren't many of them when we built ours.
Keeping with the idea of enhancing the classic elements of Indiana Beach, Spackman wanted to replace a classic attraction. Ideal Beach's first ride was a Ferris wheel, but that was removed over time. However, in 1990, Spackman sought to replace the wheel, but in a much grander style. In order to add a new wheel without losing shops or much-needed space at Indiana Beach, Spackman returned to his inspired idea from 1984 and built the new wheel on the rooftops and over the boardwalk. The giant gondola wheel would stand nearly 100 feet in the air at the end of the Indiana Beach Boardwalk Funway. Illuminated by 10,000 lights, it stands as a nighttime icon on Lake Schaefer, giving all a spectacular view of Indiana Beach. When it's time for thrills and spills, there's nothing like a classic wooden roller coaster. A piece of Americana as heartfelt as apple pie and rock and roll, the wooden roller coaster has long stood as the definitive icon for amusement parks.
We didn't have a really big coaster. In the amusement business, a coaster stood out. If you didn't have a coaster, you didn't have much.
No wooden coaster had been built in the state of Indiana in over 50 years. With the extensive wooden support structure and crossbeams required for a coaster of this type, a wooden coaster at Indiana Beach presented a particular problem with its lack of available space. Spackman, however, saw this as a challenge he could overcome.
I think he knew what he wanted in his mind, and the problem there was the structure could not be wooden. We didn't have the land for it. So that is when the idea of actually building with the steel and putting on a wood track came into mind.
In early 1994, Indiana Beach announced its plans to build a wooden roller coaster. Being the first one to be built in the state in over 50 years, and at the time the only wooden roller coaster in the state, the announcement was groundbreaking for both Indiana Beach and the state of Indiana.
We're going to call it the Hoosier Hurricane. I don't think we've ever had a hurricane in Indiana before.
Oh, the hurricane was, I think, a 3-year project on paper.
You know, Dad was very involved in the entire engineering of that. That was right after Mom had died, and it was a project that really got him focused. They went through about 3 or 4 different layouts of that.
To give the Hoosier Hurricane a unique feel and help with the space issues, the majority of the coaster was built directly over Lake Schaefer, with many of the drops designed to bring riders down to the edge of the water.
So we had enough room by running it all the way out to the end of the island on the south and start early on the northern part. So we had around 2,500 feet, and that was enough.
The Hoosier Hurricane required a lot of piling in the lake, which was a challenge. That those footers had to be put in the wintertime, which meant you were working with a frozen lake, trying to move a barge, get everything positioned correctly.
We didn't tear anything down. We either went over, under, or through, and that's the way we did it. It goes under the suspension bridge, which was already here. It goes around the island, which was already here.
We wanted to utilize the suspension bridge and have the coaster drop under that. So you've got to double up with all that surprising drop right under the bridge before it makes the turn and climbs up around the end of the island, which also gives you a fantastic illusion if you're sitting in the front seat of just flying out into the lake. So the design work he did on that was just outstanding.
Tom Spackman Sr. got a first-hand view of his design work as he took the very first ride aboard the Hoosier Hurricane on opening day, May 27, 1994. A unique and exciting out-and-back coaster, the Hoosier Hurricane was the perfect addition to Indiana Beach's lineup of attractions, and it was a ride like no other.
That was my first ride. All I've got to say is it's fast. I'm sure it's going to be extremely popular. It's got a trick in it too. You see that bridge and you swear it's never going to be able to get under that one. We all ducked.
Just what a roller coaster should be like. Just wonderful ride. It's really thrilling.
Oh, it's terrific. Very fast and smooth, and it never lets up. There's a little bit of air time at the bottom of the first drop, and when it hits the drop under the bridge, it just takes your breath away. And the ride is just fantastic.
Wonderful. One of the best rides in the country. It really is.
Marketing and advertising played a huge role in spreading the news of the Hoosier Hurricane's arrival. An early TV spot took a cue from Spackman's comments at a press conference about a hurricane about to hit Indiana.
We interrupt this program to bring you this special bird's eye report. There has been a hurricane spotted on the shore of Lake Schaefer in Monticello, Indiana.
A hurricane in Indiana?
It's the Hoosier Hurricane roller coaster at Indiana Beach, Indiana's largest amusement resort and vacation playground. Indiana Beach on beautiful Lake Schaefer, Monticello, Indiana, proving once again there is more than corn in Indiana.
Blows me away.
Addition of the Hoosier Hurricane in 1994 had a major impact in terms of attendance. We had a 20% boost in attendance that year. The other thing it got for us was a lot of notice nationwide in terms of the news media.
With the success of the Hoosier Hurricane and the growing popularity of Indiana Beach, new attractions and additions seemed to spring up almost every year. One of the first was the Sky Coaster. Unveiled in 1995, this insane thrill ride let riders freefall, then swing over the waters of Lake Schaefer. In true form, Tom Spackman, now in his 80s, made sure the ride was up to his standards.
He went to Florida and decided that he would fly on Sky Coaster, which is a cable ride. You go up 100 feet and then you swing and you fly. And he became the oldest, actually I should say couple, that had ridden Sky Coaster at Kissimmee, Florida. So if he wants to, he's going to try it out and ride it. And I think we can say that he has done that for every ride that we have installed here in the park.
Several new additions started popping up over the next few years. The 1992 edition of the Water Swing let guests glide on the wind over Lake Schaefer. The Wild Big Flush water coaster delivered wild water fun to any who braved its twists and turns. The exciting Double Shot and giggle-inducing Frog Hopper rides arrived in 1999 to the delight of thrill seekers of all ages. Even I.B. Crow received a ride in honor of his name as Air Crow took to the skies and let guests pilot their own crow over the water.
People today, I feel, are looking to pack as much into their vacation, their stay, as they can possibly get. They want to go 24/7. So by increasing the number of rides, we can offer 3 days of nonstop, can't do it all fun. And I think that's the big thing that we've done. We've also tried to add new rides when lines seem to be getting too long, people have to wait, then maybe it's time to add an attraction so that you can get unlimited rides here.
More people at Indiana Beach meant a need for more accommodations for overnight stays. As Indiana Beach grew from a sand beach to an amusement resort and destination, more vacationers wanted options to stay at the facility. In addition to more cottages, as well as renovations to the motel and inn, a second campground was added. This time it was Yogi Bear's Jellystone Park at Indiana Beach.
The kids rule. They had to see that bear. So I got a bear. And it works.
There are a lot of people that camp in Indiana. That enabled us to just double probably our daily stays. We have over 500 sites now. So we have ferry boats and trams to bring the people that are staying in our two campgrounds to the beach. In all honesty, I think it's probably half of the business now.
Through all its new attractions, new slogans, and new guests, Indiana Beach never forgot its place as a classic facility filled with classic attractions. Over time, many older attractions became dated. However, the Spackman family knew these attractions were near and dear to the hearts of many park regulars. So rather than scrap the rides, they were renovated and updated with new technology and the continued imagination of the Spackman family. The first of these major updates was the park's classic Haunted Mansion dark ride, the Mystery Mansion.
That was Dad's masterpiece, so to speak, that he put in back in the 60s. And by 1998, it had become a little dated. And Ruth and I thought it would be a good idea to put the interactive guns on the cars and change the scenes. Dad was really hesitant about the whole thing, and reluctantly he said, okay, you kids go ahead, but remember it's your responsibility. And it's become one of the biggest successes we've had in the park. And of course, he's very pleased with the results.
The Den of Lost Thieves met with such overwhelming success that attendance of the dark ride more than tripled in its first season. After the successful achievements with the Mystery Mansion Den of Lost Thieves conversion, Indiana Beach sought to update the classic Dr. Frankenstein's Haunted Castle in 2000. But the most unprecedented update came in 2003, as one of Tom Spackman Sr.'s pet projects needed to be modernized. The classic Superstition Mountain was set to become the Lost Coaster of Superstition Mountain. The vehicles and track on the classic ride were electric, which caused the ride to break down in the rain. In addition, the ride's stunts felt dated and rider capacity became an issue. It was time to rebuild the ride, this time as a wooden coaster. With space an issue, the creative minds at Indiana Beach got working.
It was unique in the fact that it used an elevator for a lift hill, something that no other coaster in the country has. It has extremely sharp turns. You got 6-foot radius turns in the mountain. You can't find a car designed to make those kinds of turns, so we had to design a special car just for the track. That was probably the biggest challenge, and then the other thing, which will sound strange, was once you get the cars back into the mountain, you've got to maintain a certain speed. You can't go too fast or the cars will not be able to make the turns. So the track is designed to slow the trains down as it comes back into the building. Most people don't realize that that little challenge existed there.
Even though it took the honors of being the #1 new wooden coaster of 2003, the Lost Coaster of Superstition Mountain remained true to its original roots as a 3-year construction project. It continues to be an ever-evolving attraction at Indiana Beach.
Well, it's kind of an ongoing work in progress. We keep tinkering with it. This year we added a tunnel to the top of the mountain. Still no peak, but we've added a new tunnel on top. We've done some more theming work inside, added some new doors to make the train scene a little more exciting. We've even brought back part of the waterfalls this year. The mountain continues to change and probably will change for a few more years.
With the ever-evolving attractions, new additions, and increasing popularity, Indiana Beach had become a perfect vacation destination. But the Spackman family vision and imagination doesn't rest. In 2001, to the amazement of the public and the entire amusement industry, Indiana Beach felt it was time to add another full-size wooden coaster. Naturally, the very first question to be asked was, where would you put it?
One thing from my dad was, don't say it can't be done, because that was the challenge. Then you could do it. And we learned that. I mean, people would say, we have no more room for a concession. We have no more room for a ride. Well, yes, we have a lot of room. We just have to be creative.
The Cornball Express was even more of a challenge because there was no room in the park to put a second major coaster. And after a lot of looking and consulting with engineers, we came up with a solution that utilized part of the Hurricane. It also comes down through the log flume, through the splashdown tank, so you can get wet if a log comes down at the right time. And then it is built up over several of the buildings, actually goes around the old Jetstar Tiger coaster, and then back into the Hurricane. So the challenges we had was getting construction equipment into places. We had to move rides, we had to remove roofs. We had to put a barge in the lake with a crane to try to get some of the steel in position. So it was an interesting project, took a lot of time.
But it was time well spent. After its debut in May of 2001, the Cornball Express not only became one of the top-rated wooden coasters in the world, it took the honors of the #1 wooden coaster of 2002 by the users of ThemeParkCritic.com. As before, marketing played a huge role in the arrival of the new coaster. A new mascot, Cornball Jones, was created just for the ride, and he joined I.B. Crow as the ride was announced. In addition, a special jingle was produced to promote it.
You can hear the laughter, you can hear the mighty roar, from the brickyard down in Indy to the wide Chicago shore. She's a rolling, twisting, turning, so might we both suggest you get your fannies riding on the Cornball Express. Yee-haw! Ride the Cornball Express.
Indiana Beach on beautiful Lake Schaefer, proving once again there is more than corn in Indiana.
Whether it's getting their fannies riding on a coaster, relaxing in the summer sun, or dancing and dining with family and friends, generations have enjoyed all that Indiana Beach has to offer. With the Spackman family firmly behind it from the start, their continued vision has proven that Indiana Beach can rise to any challenge and will always deliver the best in quality fun and entertainment. With plans for tomorrow blossoming every day, exciting changes every season, and a continued commitment to quality, there are no limits in sight for Indiana Beach's future. From a cornfield that a horse and cart turned into a beach swimming area, to the largest amusement and vacation playground in the state of Indiana. From its humble beginnings as Ideal Beach to its undying popularity in the hearts of guests of all ages and generations, Indiana Beach has come to represent that there truly is more than corn in Indiana.
There's more than corn in Indiana. It's the best part of Americana, and it's right within your reach. It's Indiana Beach. There's more than corn in Indiana. There's a great resort where you can plan a vacation. That's a lot of fun for each at Indiana Beach. There's more than corn in Indiana at the super sensational, exciting vacational Indiana Beach.
Come celebrate 80 years of all the fun at Indiana Beach on beautiful Lake Schaefer, Monticello, Indiana, proving once again there is more than corn in Indiana.
That's true, there's more than corn in Indiana.